So what I'm going to do this morning is introduce and lead the offering meditation practice. And that's a practice that I had adapted some years ago from a ritual practice of Tibetan Buddhism called the mandala offering practice, which is part of the set of foundational practices that people do hundreds of thousands of times in Tibet and in Tibetan Buddhism to help prepare the mind um, for deepening. And I just want to say a few things to introduce it first, because there's a kind of a logic or a reasonability behind it that that if we are aware of, it can help us access the offering practice, I think, more fully, sort of more of a sense of what it is we're doing by doing it. So I think, as maybe all of us have noticed, I think most people I've ever known who try to practice in Buddhist practice traditions, like Mahamudra, Dzogchen, Zen, which are very, very deep traditions, and they're pointing with some immediacy to the depth of our being, and kind of in order to open the possibility of reconnecting with the depth of our being. But I think, as probably all of us have experienced quite a lot, and many others, it's not necessarily so easy to just open and reconnect with the depth of our being. It sounds nice. And on some level, probably many of us or most of us immediately think, oh, yes, that's for me. That's why we're here. Oh, yeah, reconnecting with my Buddha nature. That's what I would love to do. So we might tend to think that because we're so oriented toward that it would naturally follow more easily than maybe it actually does. It's actually quite challenging. So that's what I want to talk about, and how that's related to offering. So basically, in Dzogchen and Mahamudra practice traditions, and I think other traditions like them, instruction is provided in ways to learn how to reunify with the source of our experience. So rather than identifying just with the current kind of reactive contents of our experience, to reunite with the very source of our experience, which is the deep nature of our minds, Semni in Tibetan, or also called Buddha nature, to reunite with that. And the qualities of Buddha nature are boundlessness, kind of infinite boundlessness, openness or emptiness, and clarity, and inmost freedom, and peace, and simplicity, and a vast capacity of compassion and energies and qualities associated with it. Those are qualities of Buddha nature. But the methods for training the mind to reunify with that nature are quite challenging. So in practices of shamatha, deepening levels of tranquility, and vipassana, analyzing or investigating or looking deeply into the nature of our experience, and also in the releasing phases of the various ritual and vajrayana or tantric practices, most of us have difficulty, I think, letting go of our ego selves enough simply to relax into the source of our experience in the nature of mind and reunify with it. By and large, we do tend to have difficulty letting go of our ego selves and just relaxing right into the nature of our experience. But I'm going to say a little bit more about that difficulty. But first, also just to point out, in the sustainable compassion training type meditations that we've all been doing, this releasing phase of just letting go into the deep nature of our mind is embedded in those practices. So we use the field of care and compassionate presence to feelings kinds of practices to bring out qualities of our Buddha nature, loving energies and powers of deep peace and openness and warmth and appreciation and compassion. And as the mind steeps in those qualities that are emerging from our deeper nature, as the mind steeps in those qualities more and more fully, it can become more and more willing in the releasing phase of each such meditation to settle right into the source of those qualities, in the nature of mind, the empty, lucid simplicity of the nature of mind. But again, I think many, or really probably all of us, feel some difficulty in the releasing phase of each of these meditations, of releasing or letting go more and more fully, of reuniting more and more with the very source of our experience. So is everybody following along okay so far? I'm going to relate this to the offering practice in a moment. So one, I think, important reason why we do tend to have so much difficulty letting go more fully of our kind of ego, grasping sense of self and its world, is that the mind is so habituated, so conditioned, and so used to reifying all of its thoughts and feelings and senses of self, identifying with them, and grasping tightly to them. So to put this another way, the mind is used to offering all of its perceptions and thoughts and feelings to its narrow, reified sense of self and world. Reified means that the mind, although the mind is generating and constructing the thoughts and feelings and frames of reference that it's operating with, the mind generates those, constructs those, but then it forgets that it's done so, and it relates to those things as if they were intrinsically real, as if they were not being constructed by the mind, as if they're just out there. So let me repeat that last point. The mind is used to offering, so I'm using the word offering now. It's used to offering all of its perceptions and thoughts and feelings to its narrow, reified sense of self and world. So in this sense, the mind has been repeatedly practicing a kind of a distorted offering meditation, again and again and again, millions or billions of times. So from this perspective, we've been doing a kind of a distorted offering meditation almost continually. Is that sort of clear enough? The mind is so conditioned in that way that it has great difficulty letting go of that habit to relax its grip and reunite. So again, I want to play off the word conditioned. The mind is so conditioned in that way that it has great difficulty reuniting with its unconditioned nature. It's too identified with its conditioned patterns of mind. The mind thinks it is those conditioned patterns of mind. It is that, it is these senses of self that the mind's constructing, reifying, and reacting from. The mind thinks that it is those conditioned patterns, and is so committed to them and so caught up in them that it has great difficulty releasing its grip on those and reuniting with its unconditioned nature, which is empty, all-pervasive, undivided, simple, and which is the source of all experience, and which transcends all such self-grasping frames of reference. So the mind is continuously offering everything to its reified sense of self because it's more committed to that narrow sense of self, that conditioned sense of self that the mind keeps generating, even now, generating it, reifying it, identifying with it, caught up in its reactions, offering everything to that process, everything. The mind has been so committed to that for so long. much more committed to that than it is to its unconditioned, all-inclusive nature, its Buddha nature. So to begin serious practice, I think already you can begin to get a sense of why that would be. So one way to begin to reverse this process that I just described of the mind's identification with its conditioned reified patterns and its commitment to those patterns and its tendency to offer everything, all of its perceptions and thoughts and feelings to those patterns. One way to begin to reverse that is to cultivate a stronger commitment to one's Buddha nature than to one's ego grasping. And then to reverse the direction of the offering. So to cultivate a stronger commitment consciously to one's Buddha nature than to one's ego grasping. And then to reverse the direction of the ongoing offering by offering all perceptions, thoughts, and feelings back to their source in the nature of mind. And that's the practice of the Tibetan mandala offering. So instead of offering all aspects of our experience to our reified sense of self in its world, we meditatively, ritually offer all of our perceptions and thoughts and feelings and frames of reference back to their source in the deep nature of mind, which is the empty, cognizant ground of experience that precedes and transcends all of our narrow senses of self. So I'll just repeat that last point. Then instead of offering all of aspects of our experience, first we intentionally make a kind of cultivate a very kind of strong or intense commitment to our Buddha nature, cultivating a kind of a stronger commitment to our Buddha nature than to our ego grasping mind. And then with that commitment, we offer all aspects of our experience back to their source in the deep nature of mind. We offer all aspects of our experience to that Buddha nature. And such a practice then can help attune the mind to its Buddha nature, to its deep nature. Help attune the mind to its unconditioned nature. Help the conditioned mind relax its grip and accept its deeper unconditioned nature, the nature of all that conditioning, the unconditioned nature of all the conditioned experience. Like the wateriness, the unconditioned, unchanging wateriness of all the shifting, changing, conditioned waves. So we can begin to sense that deep nature of mind, Buddha nature, as our actual identity, and therefore become increasingly willing to reunify with it, kind of like coming home or coming back to who I really am, with some sense of relief rather than fear of letting go or releasing into the unknown, a sense of relief of returning to who and what I really am. That prior to all the reactive sense of self that my mind had mistaken as my ultimate self. So that's the basic idea. Is that basically clear enough? Is that okay? So that introduces the practice. In the Tibetan Buddhist world, the practice is done symbolically by offering your whole world in its outer and inner and inmost dimensions of your whole world of experience. And that's symbolically constructed and offered as in the form of the cosmological world of ancient India, which is the cosmological sense of what the world is from ancient Buddhist tradition. A great mountain called Mount Meru at the center, and 4 continents around it, and all kinds of details and special figures in that kind of mandala of cosmological sense of one's whole world or cosmos. So what I did was kind of translate that or reframe that into the intent behind that offering in each phase of it, without requiring that the one doing the offering practice envision their world as the ancient cosmologically framed world of India, because that's not our cosmology, and that's not the way we experience our world. So I felt like that was becoming an obstruction for many Western Tibetan Buddhist practitioners, that they're offering, in a sense, somebody else's world instead of their own. But that's not the intent of the practice. It's actually to offer our own experienced world. You follow what I'm saying? So that was the translation that I did with the practice. And that's what we'll enter into now, okay? So as I lead the meditation, I think you've all had a chance to take a look at it, right? So as I lead, you'll notice there's some details to it, but as I'm leading it, don't worry about getting all the details perfectly right. Just imagine or sense that that's what's happening. What's being instructed is happening. Just sense or imagine that that's the case. And that helps release the pressure a little bit of trying to visualize everything perfectly. We don't really have to. But if someone takes up the practice and does it regularly, I do it every day. So if someone takes it up and does it regularly like that, you just become more and more familiar with it, and it can take more and more vivid form in its own natural way. Okay, so shall we begin? Or is everybody game? Okay, so just sit in a relaxed way, back straight. Eyes can be gazing gently downward. And then just come down from the thinking mind into the body. And just feeling the body as a whole, relaxing into it. And let the breath settle into its own natural flow while breathing into the abdomen, so it expands with each inhale. And feel the abdomen expanding and contracting with each breath. And just let that feeling draw you into it more and more, breath by breath. The feeling of the moving abdomen. And now envision the Buddha before you, in whatever form you'd like to envision the Buddha, whatever form you're familiar with. And the Buddha is radiant with all the qualities of enlightenment. So literally all pervasive wisdom, all inclusive unconditional love, compassion, and liberating energy. So just envision the Buddha before you, kind of communing with the Buddha for a moment. The Buddha as with a sense that the Buddha is actually present here before you, not just an abstraction, embodying all those qualities of enlightenment. Radiant with them. And think of that Buddha envisioned before you as one with your Buddha nature, your deep nature, and one with the actualized Buddha nature of all of your spiritual benefactors or teachers, and their teachers and their teachers. One with your Buddha nature, one with their actualized Buddha nature. And let a strong wish arise to just be completely offered up to the Buddha, to the Buddha's qualities, to be offered up so completely to what the Buddha embodies that you would become one with the Buddha, one with your deepest spiritual nature. So let a strong wish kind of well up to be just completely offered up with that sense, completely offered up into oneness with the Buddha, with your deepest nature. To let everything dawn in light of that nature. And let that strong, sincere wish to be offered up like that just manifest as a radiance from your heart, like a rainbow. A radiance that transforms into beautiful, luminous offerings of all the senses. The most beautiful, radiant sights and sounds and scents and tastes and touches that you can imagine. So this strong wish to be completely offered up like that becomes a rainbow radiance from your heart, just filling space with radiant offerings of all the senses. Whatever's most beautiful to you. For me, it becomes the most beautiful flower gardens, forests, oceans, and mountains, beautiful bird calls and smells. Whatever it is for you, the radiant offering, radiance from your heart offering. What's most beautiful to you is these radiant offerings. And all of it is being joyfully received and absorbed by the Buddha before you. As rainbow light into his radiant body, or hers. That was an outer dimension of offering, and now moving into further inner dimensions of offering. Can now think of your various possessions, whatever you think of as mine. Think of your various possessions. And as you think of them, they become radiance from the heart of offering to the Buddha. Perhaps you think of your house as yours, or your bicycle, or your car, or your things. Whatever you think of as yours, let it become radiance, rainbow radiance from the heart as offering to the Buddha. And the Buddha just joyfully accepting and absorbing all those offerings as radiance. Just methodically thinking of more and more of what you consider your possessions and letting them be rainbow radiant offering. And then think of the various aspects of your work or your activity in your world. And as you think of various aspects of that, let them become radiance, rainbow radiance from your heart. It's completely offered to the Buddha. Every aspect you can think of your work or activity and what supports it. And those you work with. And everything you use for your work, it all becomes rainbow radiance as you think of it. And now turn your attention to your spiritual practices and what supports those spiritual practices and any spiritual qualities that may have emerged for you from those practices. As you think of all that, or each aspect of that, it becomes radiance of offering from the heart. Perhaps you have special spiritual supports like books or readings or pictures or ritual implements or anything like that. As you think of each, they just become radiance of offering from your heart, totally offered up. And now turning attention to your relationships, just thinking of your various relationships, and as you think of each, it becomes rainbow radiance from your heart, completely offered to the Buddha, to Buddha nature. All aspects of each relationship, as they come to mind, become rainbow radiance offering, just totally offered up. And now think of some of your most familiar emotional feelings, like hopes or fears or desires that are familiar to you, or sorrows that you have, or joys, or self doubts, or feelings of despair, or envy, or delight, or grief, or passion, or whatever. Just let some of your most familiar emotions come to mind one by one. And as you think of each one, let the object of the emotion and your sense of self within the emotion become a spontaneous radiance from your heart, completely offered up to the Buddha. Each emotion, as you think of it, let its object and subject and energy just spontaneously become radiance of offering from your heart, just completely sense of deep devotional offering to the Buddha. All of it offered up to dawn in light of the Buddha, in light of Buddha nature, offered to the Buddha nature, offered back to its source. So just thinking of or recalling one emotion at a time in that way, which becomes radiant offering as you think of it. And now stepping back a bit at a even more fundamental level, just as whatever thoughts or cognitions or feelings or perceptions are arising now, even as they arise, and as soon as they rise, they become rainbow light offering from the heart, absorbed into the Buddha. thoughts, cognitions, feelings, labels, perceptions, even as they're arising, they become a radiant rainbow offering from the heart to the Buddha. All aspects of experience, even as they're arising, just spontaneously, naturally become rainbow radiance, spontaneous offering, absorbed into the Buddha joyfully. And now, having offered so fully, we can receive the purifying energy and radiance of the Buddha's liberating compassion and wisdom deeply into our body and heart and mind. So as I chant the mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha, just let the Buddha commune with your basic goodness and dignity through that radiance, the kind of radiance of blessing from the Buddha. That's just radiating down upon you and pouring into your whole being. The Buddha's radiant blessings beyond all limiting thoughts about them. So just imagine a gentle shower of radiant, purifying energy coming from the Buddha into your whole body and mind. Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munae Soha. 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 So receiving these radiant blessings from the Buddha deeply into your whole body, into all layers of your mind, into all places of struggle or worry, into all feelings and emotions, into every thought, every feeling, perception, into the subtlest channels of the body and mind. Just opening to, accepting, allowing, receiving deeply this radiant, purifying energy of blessing from the Buddha into your whole being. Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munae Soha. Tayata Om Muni Muni Maha Munae Soha. Tayata ho muni muni maha munae so. 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 And finally, as I continue to chant, just let yourself be dissolved completely within that radiant energy. So within that radiant energy, then as that radiant energy, you just become completely absorbed into oneness with the Buddha. And then release the visualization and just let the mind settle back into complete openness and simplicity, releasing all frames of reference. Tayata ho muni muni maha munae so. Tayata ho muni muni maha munae so. Tayata ho muni muni maha mune so. Just merging into oneness with the Buddha in that radiance. Tayata ho muni muni maha munae so. Now let all aspects of experience, just sensed as insubstantial radiance, just arise and dissolve by themselves in total openness. All aspects of experience as intrinsically radiant, self-arising, self-dissolving, self-offered to their own radiant awareness. And just rest thus, one with the Buddha's infinite mind. The natural state of all-pervasive openness and awareness, undivided. Okay. And we can dedicate the karmic merit, the positive spiritual power of the practice, with the prayer at the end. By the spiritual power of this practice, may the pure, brilliant sun of bodhicitta dawn in each and every heart and mind, dispelling the darkness of suffering and confusion unstoppably until all are fully illumined and awakened. Okay, good, thank you. So we can let that settle, and whenever anybody feels ready, if you would like, you could share a comment from your experience of that meditation, if you'd like to, or any question that you may have.
It felt like a lot of releasing and letting go, which felt healing.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Don. So any other comments that anyone would like to share from your experience of the meditation, or any questions at their own time?
Yeah, I would like to thank you for your explanation of this practice. I found that the additional insights I gleaned from it were really helpful. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
I could say something. I found that the result was a deep inner peace. And it was interesting when I envisioned radiance, I envisioned soft little bells and perhaps some crystals with light coming through them. And what arose was two instances of where I felt annoyed at people, and one instance of a family crisis where somebody was emergently detained, and I was able to look at all of them with radiance. So thank you.
Good. Thanks for sharing that. I think the direction from the instruction of the practice keeps unfolding. So not only observing them, but actually offering our experience of it. Yeah. So thank you for that. Offering it to the Buddha.
I've been trying to become more and more meticulous about noticing the resistances and hiccups that arise in practice, because I think over many years I would sort of kind of bounce along on the surface of practices and miss the parts of me that were not engaging or were resistant to things coming up. And more typically in a receiving or extending practice, or other practices, the instruction I've been using is what you've led us to, of typically sort of allowing whatever is arising to be held in radiance, to be held in love. And so in this practice, the very first hiccup was let a strong wish arise to be fully offered up. And that's a kind of an curious instruction. Sorry, not to be going on and on and on, but it's an instruction to want something, and we tend to think of wanting as either being there or not. You know, I either want ice cream or not. So so I just kind of allowed the resistance to be there and just proceeded. And I did find that the desire to be offered up would kind of increased seemingly naturally through the practice. But also it felt like it's a complex enough set of instructions that I didn't want to back out and allow resistant parts to be held and so on. So I just sort of practiced as if this is happening anytime there was a resistance to it. So I guess I'm curious if you have any comments about those. I assume that if you do this for years, and then it naturally falls into place. But
I think part of what you're raising up, Carol, is just the nature of learning new practices. It's really when first introduced to a new practice, or a practice that's not mainly one that we've been doing a lot, and in that sense is relatively new to us, we're being introduced to a kind of a direction for a process to unfold. It's not like, oh, suddenly I should just be following all this perfectly, or the instruction to let the desire well up, to just be completely offered up to the Buddha, which is one with your Buddha nature, and one with what has drawn us to our spiritual benefactors, as their Buddha nature has been actualized in some way that drew us to them. That instruction is actually pointing toward a process that can unfold more and more of a stronger and stronger wish to be offered up. But the fact that we already have that wish, every one of us, is established by the fact that we're here. Like, we have entered into practice. Why? In order to be offered up to our Buddha nature. We may not have phrased it exactly that way, but that's why, in order to realize its qualities. So actually we all have that wish, and this is making it explicit, and it's pointing into a sort of a direction. With repetition, if someone took up the practice and repeated it, to keep exploring that wish, which indeed each of us already have, it's coming from our Buddha nature, the wish to become reunified with it, or the wish from our Buddha nature for us to discover how to come back to it. So it's already there. It's already drawn us into practice. And then all the rest of what you describe, it's all part of the process. But there is a difference in the way this is instructed, and the way we practice it is so simple in its own way. I know there are a lot of details to it, but the basic attitude is one of just whatever comes to mind. If we think of it as a distraction or an impediment or a resistance, or however we think of it, or this or that part of ourselves, whatever it is, it just becomes rainbow radiance. There's nothing else that needs to be done with it or figured out about it. So in that way, like others of our practices, there's a real simplicity in this. We don't have to figure anything out, but it's also pointing a direction for a process that can unfold more and more in its own time. And actually, in light of everything you said, it's kind of remarkable, I feel, how quickly that process began to unfold for you right in the middle of the practice. After having pointed out a number of potential issues or something, eloquently as you did, somehow the process actually began to unfold in a way that's starting to clarify where this needs to go from your own process. So, yeah, thank you for that. So it's just like 2 minutes left. Any other sharing that anyone might like before we stop?
I just want to say thanks, John. After offering up some beautiful things, I found that I was just able to offer up some shame, some hurt, and that felt really meaningful and easy to do this morning. And it's often what I would not want to bring into the light. I'll just say, you talk about not using our assigned cosmology from Buddhism, and often not assigned field of care, that we use our own field of care. And I did experience some resistance on how the Buddha would look and where the Buddha would be up here versus there. And I just went with your instruction, the felt sense of the qualities, and then the Buddha took whatever shape it did this morning. But I know that's a point of resistance for me.
Yeah. Just as a practical matter, it's helped me to just look at a picture sometimes. Whatever picture is most attractive to me, the most attractive form of the Buddha, I have some of those pictures in my room and I look at them. So that helps a lot. It's sort of a simple, practical thing. I love hearing about how feelings like the ones you described could become radiant offering, and how profound that can be. And then the last thing, because we're just about to end now, just to share it is one thing that came up for me, just to share it is, I'm retiring now. This semester is my last semester of teaching at Boston College, and I'm beginning to empty out my office and begin to feel some sadness, as is natural, as I'm beginning to get rid of certain books and empty this or empty that, or it's just going to become an empty office again after being there for years. And I found that while offering all aspects of your work and your activity in that part of the practice, I had remembered that, it's just the last few days, and it all became rainbow offering. And somehow two things happened with that. One is it all made much deeper sense, the offering up, the letting go of it. And secondly, it somehow became joyful. And also that sense of joy in it, of offering it all up rather than just clinging to it or something. That joy also felt real, like getting real, not of fooling myself by trying to feel joyful about intrinsically sad things, but that there's actually a deeper dimension of joy here that signals getting more real and feeling even more joy by offering it all up, rather than getting caught up in the sadness of it or something, and letting the sadness be offered up too, not to get rid of it, but in order for it to find its own realer dimension, which seems to be part of our deep nature. So anyhow, I just thought I'd share a little bit of my experience as well from this morning. So thank you all. I think we need to stop. Our time is up. Thanks for showing up. Great to practice with you all.